Resident Evil is arguably the most influential survival horror series of all time, while also being one of the longest running video game franchises. The first entry was developed and published by Capcom in 1996, and since then, Resident Evil, like the victims of the T and G virus, has taken many different forms. This isn't a history lesson on the series though, but as far as my history with it, well, it goes about as far as Resident Evil 5 on the Xbox 360. This isn't to say that I'd never heard of the series before though. Far from it. It is to say that I am a total wimp when it comes to horror games. Why the hell would I want to spend my relaxation time running away from grotesque beasts while inadvertently doing keggels? While I loved 5's exhilarating action movie campaign back when it came out in 2009, I'd heard enough bad things about RE6 that I did not continue with the series. I had tried out RE4 at one point or another, as it had glowing reviews, but was turned off by the incredibly stressful opening to that game. It was confusing and unforgiving. Everything in my gaming conditioning told me to be shooting the zombies. Maybe if I kill enough of them, they'll go away. Unsurprising to fans of the series, this approach got me nowhere. The game's brutal and, for what I see now, glorious death animations only added salt to these wounds. There's a real feeling of helplessness that, in my experience, is a hallmark of horror games, and I was not a fan. I remember when I was about 14 or so, I was on holiday in the US, and my uncle took me to Knott's Berry Farm during Halloween. In the month of October, they transformed the park into what they call Knott's Scary Farm. This was my first haunted house experience, and it scared the ever-loving shit out of me. I had a fun time, but I remember at a certain point I had just had enough of stuff jumping out at me. I started waving my hand out in front of my face and clicking at things that could potentially jump out at me. My uncle told me off for this, but we kept on our merry way. Whether this event turned me off horror, or if I was just never really built for it in the first place, is a matter for the chicken and the egg. When Resident Evil 2 Remake came out, I saw those Metacritic reviews and I jumped to purchase it. Scores and scores of rave reviews, but when it came time to play it, I couldn't make it past the garage section. In fact, I probably made it to the garage section on about 5 different occasions before the stress did me in. At the end of the day, I just couldn't handle it. I wasn't having fun, and I didn't know how I was supposed to. To make matters worse, Resident Evil 4 Remake just has been released to unsurprisingly rave reviews. There is a gene in me that needs to understand what people see in these games. But if I can't beat Resident Evil 2 Remake, what in the world makes me think I'll be able to get my money's worth out of Resident Evil 4? And this brings us to the point of my rambling. The answer was in front of me the whole time. I just had to go back further than I expected to. Hello everyone, my name is Stone Skeleton, and this is my review of Resident Evil HD. For those who don't know, Resident Evil HD is a complete reimagining of the 1996 original. Released in 2002 on the GameCube, it is considered the definitive edition, adding large gameplay sections, new rewritten dialogue, and most noticeably, a fresh coat of paint. This is the first game of the Resident Evil Remake saga, even if it would be just under 20 years until we got the remake of Resident Evil 2. In a way, it makes sense that I'd have to start here before I was able to enjoy the series beyond. This, although not the original Spencer Mansion that some have grown up with, is timeless in a way that feels like it goes beyond the regular use of the word regarding video games. You will play as either Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield, both members of the elite rescue team known as STARS. Joining you in your jaunt through the mansion are fellow team members Albert Wesker and Barry Burton, acting in a sort of companion role, although most of your playtime will be completely alone. This makes up the STARS Alpha Team. After reports of cannibalistic murders occurring in and around a small rural town, STARS Team Bravo goes in to investigate, but after losing contact with Bravo, Alpha Team is sent in to rescue. On your way to rescue Bravo Team, the team finds Bravo's crashed helicopter, and then you are chased into a nearby mansion by enraged zombie dogs. Once inside, the team makes the classic move of splitting up to investigate further and find a way out of the mansion. This is the setup to your Night of 1,000 Frights. Welcome to the Spencer Mansion. REHD is played from an odd, fixed camera perspective, unlike anything else I've ever really come across in my time. From what I understand, this was almost exclusively used by series like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, Eternal Darkness, etc., used to the effect of creating a more cinematic experience. The game uses pre-rendered backgrounds rather than full 3D environments. You don't have any control over the camera other than where you position yourself in the space. Cross a certain threshold and the camera position will move, offering a new perspective of the area you are in. In exchange for a fully realized 3D game, you are getting in return a much better looking game that ran pretty great on my PC. Seriously, my eyes did not skip a beat going from this to RE2 Remake and vice versa, which is insane. Still stands up incredibly well to this day. Basically, you are controlling a 3D character in 2D spaces. This can feel unnatural, but I could only imagine how it would have felt with tank controls. Coming from modern games, it feels a bit clunky, though after a while the movement begins to become second nature. You'll start to anticipate camera changes, dodging and weaving through zombies before you can even see them. Sometimes you'll hear danger before you see it, causing you to preemptively start blasting. After getting grips on the controls, your next goal will be to start exploring the mansion and solving whatever puzzles can get in your way. You're not really given a clear objective, so you must trial and error your way to finding your feet. In the beginning of the game, there are a lot of locked doors, so your only real option is to explore the rooms that are open. After exploring for a while, it is likely you'll find a key item that will unlock the next set of doors, or perhaps solve a puzzle that you've been scratching your head on. This is the gameplay loop of REHD. Part of this loop is a concept called the safe room. These are rooms where you may save your game, sort your inventory, and prepare before you head back out. Most importantly, it is a place with nice, calming music for you to take a mental break from the relentless stress awaiting you outside. From what I remember, these are completely sacred spaces and will never be invaded by enemies, although I can't speak for the rest of the series. Saving in REHD is not something that I think would fly in games these days, but for me is where the terror truly came from. See, in REHD, saves are a finite resource called ink ribbons. On a normal difficulty, you can find up to 30 ink ribbons, so 30 chances to save your game during an entire run. This can lead to situations where it may be easier to reload to an earlier save than it is pressing on. Say you saved 5 times before working out a section of the mansion. It could be beneficial reloading to an earlier save and to try to cut that number down now that you know the solution to the puzzle and maybe a more optimal route to get to it. If someone put a gun to my head and made me choose between limited saves or 100 underwater sections, I would, in every multiverse, go with the underwater sections. So, thank the Lord and Saviour Larry David that I didn't develop REHD. The limited saves ended up having a real psychological effect on me during my first playthrough. The risk-reward part of my brain was firing off in a way that was both delightful and anxiety-inducing. On the first playthrough, I used 15 ribbons before even reaching the guardhouse. Those that have played before would know that the guardhouse is probably the halfway mark of the game. So in the scheme of things, I was slightly behind in the ink ribbon economy. As this was my first playthrough and I wasn't using a guide, I had no fucking idea when my next chance to save was. And that was horrifying. At this point in the game, I was holding on by the skin of my teeth. With no resources and no other way but forward, every creak, groan and zombie moan I heard chilled me to my underground core. What hallway should I take? Who should I spend my ammo on? And who should I run past? What items do I need to take with me before I leave the safe room? This game is like a I left my wallet at home simulator. I've completed it 3 times, and even to this day I'd still forget things and have to go back to the safe room. They should just make kids play this game in school, because if they did, we'd have a much more organised society. REHD has a time portal effect that is unlike most other games. I'm not talking about an in-game one, I'm talking about a real-life one. It can both slow time to a crawl and make hours feel like minutes, sometimes at the same time. For example, there was a situation where I had planned out a route in my head, and how I was going to avoid the obstacles that had foiled my previous attempts. You kind of start turning into that meme of the woman thinking, you know, this one. I ran through the hallways, ducking and weaving like my life depended on it, and right as I was about to cross the finish line, I was grabbed and killed. I was furious. One of my biggest pet peeves with games is getting the feeling like my time is being deliberately wasted, and in this particular moment, that felt like what had just occurred. Because of the game's limited saves, I lost a precious 20 minutes of progress for a stupid mistake. That's just unforgivable. Until I watched the footage back. It turns out that the 20 minutes I whinged about to my friend was not true at all. It was only like 5 minutes, and after I cooled off and got back to it, it only took me 3 minutes to get back to where I was. This is where I believe REHD's true genius is. The game wasn't wasting my time, it was teaching me valuable lessons on how to navigate the space and how to think about the game. I was approaching it all wrong. Although I'm a huge Souls fan, I never enjoy seeing a game over screen. It upsets me and makes me want to stop playing. But this isn't a game filled with unfair one-hit kill deaths, although there are some. It is a game of completely avoidable obstacles that the game wants you to trial and error your way through until you get it right. From the outside, it doesn't feel like there is actually very much to the gameplay. Run around, auto-aim enemies, pick shit up, flip switches, etc. But it's how all these things interact that give the game a surprisingly high skill ceiling. Using ammunition may help you build a stash of recovery items, but then you may come across a boss fight without anything to do damage with. On the other hand, healing your way through every encounter might just soft-lock you going back to an earlier save. The true puzzle of REHD isn't in any lockbox or statue pushing. It's in managing your inventory and keeping a steady supply of resources. Something I understand about the survival horror genre is the idea of disempowering the player, especially in the beginning. REHD is no slouch and is no friend to someone who has never played a game in the series. There were two things that I got particularly hung up on and needed a guide to sort out. The first issue was that I wasn't aware that key items are often kept inside other items. I now understand this to be a trademark of the series. Gameplay-wise, it doesn't add much other than a bit of extra detective regarding which items may have something inside, but it also functions as a sort of model viewer, which is rad. Every item is bursting with detail and are a joy to examine. In later entries of Resident Evil, there is an in-game model viewer, with models being earned through in-game achievements and challenges. The second thing I got stuck on was a lot simpler, and something that I think I'll just keep running into the more old games I play. I'd been searching around the mansion for about 30 minutes, or it could have been 3, 5, I don't know, trying my best to find a way to progress. I felt like I had searched literally everywhere, and was left scratching my head. So, fuck it, I'll look up where to find the next key. More than anything, I wanted to play this game completely blind to maximize my sense of dread, in a way that it felt like something would be lost using a guide, as knowing what items to bring and what rooms to go in is like 75% of the challenge here. I don't want to tell anyone how to play games, but it is important to the experience here that you be pushed to your limits. I don't mean you have to play on hard or even normal mode, merely that the oppressive atmosphere the game provides needs to be complemented by your own internal feeling of being kicked while you're down. Well, anyway, in this case, there was just simply one door I hadn't tried. That was it. It wasn't a puzzle, I just failed the game's trial and error test. This leads me on to one of my favorite things about REHD, and the series as a whole, which is the map. In REHD, the map has a color coding system. Rooms you haven't fully explored being colored in red, with rooms you have explored being colored in green. In addition, doors that are locked will be colored red, Doors that have been unlocked will be blue, and doors that you haven't tried will still be in white. This means that anytime you get lost, you can always catch your bearings by taking a look at the map and just checking where you haven't been yet. The puzzles in the game are all quite simple and can be solved with just a little bit of trial and error, so most of the times I got stuck with more navigational issues, fixed with a closer examination of the map and the rooms that I hadn't dug hard enough into. Combat in REHD is weird. It is not something that I would call fun, but this isn't an action game and combat is not the focus. You cannot move and shoot at the same time, and in regard to aiming, your only options are up, down, and head level. It is an easy to learn, hard to master system. There is a plateau that 99% of players will sit on, while the other 1% of players will be able to get off this plateau. Positioning and knowing enemy locations are key to success. Hell, the game even has an invisible zombie mode, which does exactly what it says. Makes all of the enemies invisible. This is cool because it gives people that want to deep dive the mechanics something to grit their teeth on, but for most players, the joy of REHD will not come from its combat, although functionally it perfectly fits the game. The only time that I'd have to aim anywhere other than head level is while using the shotgun, which if you let a zombie get close enough while you're aiming upwards, will result in you blowing its head off. This means too that the zombie won't be able to come back as a crimson head, save you from burning the body. I may be wrong in saying this, but it feels like this is mechanically the only rewarding part of the combat. It is an inch wide, a mile deep. You just need to be able to fit in that hole. I talked earlier about how the genius of REHD comes from how its mechanics intersect. And on that note, there are two other cool things I want to mention here. The first of which being the aforementioned Crimson Heads. Every piece of REHD media that I have consumed has gone into quite a bit of detail about Crimson Heads. But in case if you didn't know, if you kill a zombie and leave its corpse for a period of time, next time you come back to that area, if some time passes, it'll be revived as something known as a Crimson Head. Basically a stronger, more aggressive zombie for you to take out, or vice versa. You do, however, have the option to use kerosene and a lighter to burn their bodies, preventing them from coming back to life. So on top of all the other shit you have to worry about, you also have to begin to try and remember which hallways may have Crimson Heads in them. Remember though, kerosene is limited, so maybe it's not worth burning a certain corpse. Instead, just choosing to avoid that hallway altogether. Or perhaps you decide to burn the corpse, but now you have 2 inventory slots being taken up by the lighter and the kerosene flask. The second thing that I'd like to briefly mention is Zombie Forest. Zombie Forest, formerly known as Bravo Team Forest, is a corpse that you'll find in the first half of the game if you're playing as Jill. This is where you find the grenade launcher. Once you've completed the game, you have the option to continue that save in what is called One More Time mode, which is a kind of new game plus, but it doesn't add too much. It does add, however, Zombie Forest. Zombie Forest is a zombie that is strapped with explosives and will replace regular zombies throughout the mansion. His AI is set to instantly begin running at you, and if you happen to shoot him, it'll be an instant game over for you, having to go back to your last save. For the most part, he is easy to avoid and doesn't cause too much trouble, but the times he does, it'll hurt your pride bad. You knew he'd be around. You're on your second playthrough. What are you doing shooting first and dodging second anyway? It's a video game equivalent to releasing a bee in the bedroom because the sex has gotten stale. It actually works to pretty great effect. The reason that I mention this is while I've only played Remake 2, the remake of 2, this feels like a Mr. X prototype. Zombie Forest doesn't dynamically follow you around the mansion, but just like Mr. X, he's introduced at a time the player already feels comfortable with the mansion and the enemy placement. In a game that is so about precision planning, it can be very exciting to add a few random elements, although it can lead to some frustration. Hey, you should be a pro at this already now, right? REHD, at its very core, is a game with an absolutely optimal route for the player to take, at the same time allowing for a ton of slack while the player figures this out. Optimization is the real puzzle to conquer here, forget about the inventory management, and far out, it just feels amazing. I'm no speedrunner, and don't think I'll ever be so dedicated to a single game to get a bit like a speedrunner. But REHD is a game that feels like it gives a non-speedrun enthusiast a taste into the best things about the hobby. It's the Ritalin-brained gamer's dream, and the way the game very slowly takes off its survival horror gloves and puts on its route optimization Hulk hands without you even noticing has me chef-kissing the air until the morning light. I want to talk a bit about the story here, but I'm not going to do a beat by beat like I did with the Deus Ex video, because to me this video is more of a call to arms for those on the fence about this game than it is a service for those of you who aren't going to play it. And for those that have already played the game to death, this is for you to suck your vampire teeth into my virgin Resident Evil experience. As I mentioned, you are chased into the mansion by spooky zombie dogs, but when you get inside you are missing a part of your team, so you're forced to explore to find them. Soon after you find a member of Bravo team who is being munched on, which means that this is no longer a matter of escaping the mansion. It's a matter of finding out what the hell happened here. Long story short, the mansion was being used to cover up a huge underground lab. Bioweapons are being developed in secret.
Wesker!
In fact, the STARS team leader, Albert Wesker, is the one who funneled you into the mansion, as he wants to see how an elite rescue squad would fare against his experiments. I fucking love this concept. This isn't leading a bunch of bratty teenagers into a trap so that they might have a voyeuristic watch the death from afar kind of thing. Rather the pursuit of pure, delicious combat data.
Barry.
Any luck, Jill?
No, nothing. What's going on around here? I can't figure it out.
I imagine with this juicy combat data, Wesker's plan is to use it to secure more funding, to do more experiments, to reach his ultimate goal of ascending to some form of godhood. This is mostly expressed through the environmental storytelling and notes found around the mansion. This game has notes and diaries that would give Dark Souls a run for its money, because if you only derived your sense of plot from the cutscenes, you're in for a bad time. Dialogue is stilted, strange in tone, and just unrealistic. It's schlocky and funny in a so bad it's good kind of way. But this, more than any other Resident Evil I've played, feels less about what is happening and more about what has happened. The characters here are just vessels to experience the madness, rather than be true, active players in it. To me, and I feel most people, the real story is the one of Lisa Trevor and the Trevors as a whole. The family who was tasked with building and maintaining this mansion were also the first to be tested upon here, and it's quite a tragic tale, which is only told through environmental storytelling and through notes found in the game. I don't think there is a single cutscene in-game that mentions the Trevors, and yet they play such a huge role in the story. It is masterfully done. Two stories being told to the player in tandem and through different mediums. The story of the mansion and Umbrella as a whole being told in the cutscenes, or the story of the Trevors long past told through diaries and their legacy in the walls. Although convoluted and confusing the longer it goes on, there is also such coherency in the themes at the same time. After so many years of not getting it and not caring about the Resident Evil series, I'm finally on board. I fucking love this game, and in the time it's taken me to write this review, I've done the A and B of RE2 Remake, I'm a few hours into 3, and since I've finally proven to myself that I can complete a Resident Evil game, I caved and I bought RE4 Remake. I played up to the Bat boss of Resident Evil 0, but honestly, I just didn't feel like going further unless it was for review purposes. In fact, I just wanted to turn this into one big Resident Evil video, similar to Noah Caldwell-Gervais' video, whose video on this was the inspiration for me to try the series again. But I decided that video would be too big in scope at the moment and probably too long. At the very least, I just wanted to express what I've expressed in this video, and let you know that if you're still on the fence about this game, don't be. It's aged like a fine wine and doesn't feel at all out of step with games today. I don't do scores, but this game can just take a 10 out of 10 because that is what it is. Thank you all for watching and have a happy April.